Greetings, everyone. This is Professor Jeff Wilkerson at Luther College, bringing you our weekly look at what to watch in the night sky. Something to go out and look for next week, this time for the week of September 27th, 2021. We've made it through another month. It's been a great month. It's been clear here. Lots to see. It gets dark a little bit earlier, so I don't have to wait quite as long to get outside to look at things. The semester has started up where we've got a great astronomy class going. Everything's been pretty good this month. So as we wrap up September, we're going to turn our attention to the area around the constellation Lyra. And we're going to do what we often do. We're going to wrap in some old ideas and then take those forward and look at some new things we haven't talked about so much, and sort of think about ideas that we've been covering week after week after week in a new context and in a new way, and think about a few things for you to look at. We got some stars for you to identify if you've not identified these stars before, to go out and learn them. If you've got a small telescope, we've got some things to look for in a small telescope as well. So this is a great week. It's a great region of the sky. We'll start right off with Vega. Vega is one of the three stars of the summer triangle. It's the brightest of the three stars of the summer triangle. It's one of the brightest 4 or 5 stars in the sky. So you go outside tonight just after dark. You're in the northern hemisphere at mid-northern latitudes, and you go outside, and Vega's high overhead just as it gets dark. Maybe starting to settle a little bit to the west right now. It is, after all, the summer triangle, and we are in autumn, but it is probably most prominent in late summer and early autumn to see the summer triangle. So Vega's definitely high overhead. It's the bright star that marks the constellation Lyra. And to find the stars of Lyra, what you want to do is look just below Vega, and just below Vega there's a parallelogram of stars. And these stars down in here are they're third magnitude stars. These are fourth magnitude stars. So remember that it's about a factor of 2.5 in brightness. So what I find often with the kinds of skies that we have around is these two stars are easy to find. These two stars need a little bit more work and a little bit darker skies for me, so I don't always see them, right? So you want to go outside and see if you can find this. It's really good. I mean, it's really a neat, tidy parallelogram, right? You don't see this all the time, where the line that connects those two stars is really pretty much parallel to the line that connects those two stars. And this scale, to give you a sense, I've marked Alberio on here, and we'll talk about that in just a second. To give you a sense of scale, that's about 13 degrees, fist and a half at arm's length. So we're not talking about a huge patch of sky here. So 1 to 2 fists down to here. So this is less than halfway there. So this is, or about halfway there. So this whole thing right there is about 7 degrees, is, maybe a fist. You hold up your fist, and Vega is at one knuckle. The other knuckle's going to be down here around these bottom stars in Lyra. So that's the first thing you do, is find the parallelogram of Lyra, go outside, do it, take a look at it, learn those stars. If you do nothing else, great. And identify Vega, and make sure you can find Vega as the big bright white star that's high overhead when you find it. Vega's going to be up there, right? And Deneb is going to be down and to the left as you look at it, to the east, rising. And Altair is going to be very much south of there, the other stars of the summer triangle. So you'll see those 3 bright stars shining. Pick Vega out. Now, from there, go ahead and pop down here. Alberio is actually in Cygnus the Swan, where Deneb. So Deneb is the tail of the swan, and Alberio is the head of the swan. So Alberio is down here, and Alberio is pretty easy to pick out. It's right in the middle of the summer triangle. It isn't, it isn't super bright, but there's not a lot of other bright stars around it. So it's the brightest star sort of in the middle of that triangle that you see right there. And Alberio, I'm sure we've talked about before. It's a double star. It's a beautiful double star, one of the best in the sky. You got a small telescope, find it, Alberio in there, point it at Alberio, your small telescope, and you'll see this blue and gold. You'll see the color difference, the temperature differences of those stars. The blue star is the hotter star. You just can't help but notice it, I don't think, when you look at those two stars together in an eyepiece. So again, that's 13 or 14 degrees from Vega to Alberio on a line across there. And just to the right of that line are these two stars in the base of the parallelogram of Lyra. Now, there's a couple of things to look for in there. Beta Lyrae is the rightmost, the westmost of the two stars, the more western of the two stars on that line there that form the base of the parallelogram. Remember, these are the easier two stars to see, the easier pair. to see of these stars in Lyra. Beta Lyrae, last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about Algol and the eclipsing binary stars. Go back and watch that video now. Why not? One star, that was in Perseus. One star, two stars, one star, two stars as they orbit each other. You see it get brighter and dimmer, and we set you off on an observing project to try to observe that. You can also see that in Beta Lyrae. Beta Lyrae is a eclipsing binary star like that. In fact, what scientists like to do, right? Scientists like to divide, categorize, and then find grand schemes to put these things back together and to find big structures. And so you got all this sort of subdivision going on and all this lumping together into bigger categories. So this is a type of eclipsing binary stars. It shouldn't come as any surprise to you that astronomers don't think of eclipsing binary stars as one uniform thing. There's different categories of them, different types of them. And this is the prototype of one type of eclipsing binary star, where you see one star passing in front of the other. And this is one you can actually detect. You can actually look around at some of these other stars, like that star right there next to it. So if you just watch, take a pair of binoculars or just with your naked eye, and watch these two stars over time, you might be able to see Beta Lyrae. We'll go do a future episode here where we talk about the timing of this, give you a good night to go out and look at that. But you can see this get dimmer relative to this as that goes into eclipse. So, and Beta Lyrae is the prototype of one of a category, one of a subclass of eclipsing binary stars. So we talk about Beta Lyrae stars all the time to say, well, not everybody talks about them all the time, right? But that is one certain type of eclipsing binary star that we have there. So that's the thing to watch here. In between these two stars, and right on the line in between them, pretty close to the middle, but shifted just a little bit toward Beta up there, is M57, the Ring Nebula, one of the very best examples of a planetary nebula in the sky. And planetary nebulae are so poorly named. Astronomers are just pros at naming things poorly and then keeping those, sticking to your guns and keeping the names, even though you know the name is bad. You stick to it and confuse it. It has nothing to do with a planet, nothing at all. You can confuse it for a planet because it looks like a little glowing disk of light. So in a telescope, it might look like a disk of light, like a planet might. You can tell it's bigger than a star, but you got to really work at it to tell that it's not what it is. Now this one is a really good example. You don't have to work at it that hard, but a little bit higher magnification. You take your small telescope, any small telescope, and you can just scan back and forth on this line that connects these stars right here, and a little bit closer to the upper star. But right on that line, you're going to find the Ring Nebula, and it's beautiful, right? I mean, go look up a picture. We have one on our webpage, and you can go find the Ring Nebula right there. It is a glowing ring of light. This is a star. These things are common. Low mass stars just do this when they get at the end of their lives. So low mass stars will puff off the outer layer. We won't go through the process of how they do this now. We can do this later on. But they sort of puff off their outer layers. You have a bit of a sort of a nuclear type explosion that would send this outer hydrogen envelope into space. And so you have this expanding gas bubble. And if you have an expanding gas bubble, if you think about a bubble, the bubble is dense on the edges. When you look at the edges, you see the edges more, but you can look right through the thin part of the middle. And that's what you're seeing here, is you have a hole, and you can see that hole in the middle where there's a thin edge of gas coming toward you. But when you look when that thin edge of gas is instead of oriented this way, it's oriented this way on the edges that are expanding out here for you. They look dense, and so you see that as a ring, and that's what you blow a soap bubble. Go out right now, blow a soap bubble, and look at that, and imagine how that soap bubble could be turned into this Ring Nebula. It's going to leave a white dwarf star down in the middle of it, and you can see the white dwarf star in there. But more about that some other time too. See if you can find the Ring Nebula if you have a small telescope. Now that you got a small telescope out, two more things to look for. Up here, Epsilon Lyrae, just a couple of degrees from Vega up this direction, is one of the stars you can often find, about the same magnitude as these two stars, so not trivial to find, but under dark skies, not hard either. And so you can find Epsilon Lyrae up there. Epsilon Lyrae is sometimes called the double-double. So it's the pair of stars. A pair of binoculars will show you two stars, no problem at all. Some people can see it without any optical aid. So a pair of binoculars shows you that this is two stars, and each of those two stars in a telescope can be broken into two stars. So it's a pair of stars and a pair of stars. So we think of this as the double-double of stars. You got a telescope, you got a pair of binoculars. or go out just under dark skies without any optical aid and see if you can at least see the two stars, and then break each of those stars into another component. And down here on the line that connects Vega to Alberio, maybe just to the right of that line that connects Vega to Alberio, about 3 degrees from here, probably at 10 degrees from Vega, so a quarter of the way up from Alberio, is a globular star cluster M56. And I know we've talked about globular star clusters before. These are big groups of stars that have a few 100,000 stars in them. They orbit the center of the galaxy, so we look toward the center of the galaxy, the halo of the galaxy. This is a bit of an outlier. We're not looking directly at the center of the galaxy when we see this one. So this one's probably, it's up away from the center of the galaxy. As we look that direction, it's out on the edge of this halo. If you imagine a halo, a big old swarm of globular clusters out there, centered on the center of the galaxy, we're looking up here, above, at the edge of that to see this. So you've got a globular cluster. It's a pretty good globular cluster. I think we have a picture of that on our website too. I didn't go check. You'd think I would. You're like, well, why wouldn't he go check before he tells us about it? Because he doesn't plan what he's going to say. He just says. And so anyway, I think we have a picture of that globular cluster. It's a pretty good one for a small telescope. So it's a great region of the sky to poke around and spend an evening if you've got a small telescope. But it's also a great region of the sky just to learn some stars and to learn some constellations and to see them. So see if you can go out and identify these stars. This is high in the sky as it gets dark again. So you're looking, where we are at 43 degrees north latitude. You go outside, I go outside as it gets dark right now, and I look up and I say, well, there's a bright star right overhead. That's Vega. Okay, that gets us right here and gets us locked into this region to start poking around and doing it. I hope you have a chance to do it this next week. I hope you have good clear skies, and I hope it's a good week ahead. Thanks, everybody. We'll have more for you next week.